Hi, welcome back. We are continuing our discussion of what is philosophy. We're defining philosophy in its 5 features. Remember, there are 5. That's going to be the core question. What are the 5 features of philosophy? Explain each and explain method in more detail. Last time we spent a lot of time talking about philosophy as an area. It's a discipline. It's the first discipline of the academy. It deals with the basic questions. We looked at the basic fundamental questions of philosophy. Now we want to move on and talk about philosophy as an attitude. And it's an attitude that I hope that you will foster in your own life. And it's the attitude of the love of wisdom. Do you know what wisdom is? Do you have wisdom? Do you want it? Do you think wisdom is the pinnacle of human achievement? I do. I think you should get wisdom. So the term philosophy literally means love of wisdom. Philos, love, sophos, wisdom. And one has wisdom if one knows the good and the means to the good. So you can ask yourself, do I know the good? And do I know how to achieve the good? So the good is going to be the source of unity for a human life and for a human society. And it will give order to all of our values and all of our choices. So wisdom has to do with knowing and doing the good. Now, we could have beliefs about the good, but what if our beliefs are wrong? Did you know that you can have a mistaken belief? I know it's not very popular to say, but it's true. We could have false beliefs. We want to have true beliefs, and we want to have true beliefs particularly about the good life. Otherwise, what if we're doing it wrong? What if we live our entire life and we find out it was meaningless? Everything we worked for was wasted. That would be tragic, right? So we want to know the good and the means to the good. That's wisdom. And wisdom was meant to be passed on so that those with experience can help those with less experience, like us. All right, so let's talk about this. Beliefs about what is real, metaphysics, and what is the good, ethics, affect our desires, what we want, and our choices, and so are crucially important. We tend to dismiss beliefs about metaphysics and ethics, but these are the most important things. Failure to know and seek the good is the source of all the miseries of life. So let me ask you, have you been miserable lately? And if so, can you figure out why? Is it because you think you can't have the good? Is it because someone else has the good and you don't have it? Think about that. Can anyone keep the good from you? So what are your desires, and are your desires attainable or unattainable? If we think they're not attainable, then we will be miserable. And so if we're miserable, that's a symptom. Our view of the good is being challenged. And if we don't know what is truly the good, then most of life will seem miserable. But what's the flip side? If you do know the good, then you'll be happy. And isn't that what we're looking for? A kind of happiness, not just a momentary fleeting thing, but a kind of lasting joy, a calm happiness that stays with us through the ups and downs of life. That's what we want. I think that's what we want. So how do we get that? Well, here's the beginning of it. Fear. What? Talking about fear is a good thing? Fear is sometimes a good thing. Fear of not having the good is the best thing, and it's the beginning of wisdom. So if we think, I don't have the good, that will motivate you to go and seek the good, pursue the good. So fear is a motivator, right? Even if it's just, you know what? I'm afraid I'm not going to pass this class. What will that fear do to you? It will motivate you to study, to make note cards and to study, right? So what if life is like that? I don't know the good. I might fail at life. I might fail at finding meaning, so I should go pursue wisdom. So fear is the beginning of wisdom. It gets you motivated. But guess what takes over? Once you have been motivated, once you've tasted wisdom and found its sweetness, then love comes in. Love of the good brings one to the fullness of wisdom. So if you love the good, if you love wisdom, then you will be self-motivated to pursue it, and you will be happy. Not just little happies, but lasting happiness. That's what we want, right? So fear and love are two sides of the same coin. Fear motivates you to pursue fear of meaninglessness. Do you fear a meaningless existence? You should. So fearing that will motivate you to pursue the wisdom, pursue the good and get wisdom, and love of the good will keep you going. So think of that. You could think of this as an analogy. I'm afraid of not passing Dr. Burton's class, so I'm going to study. And as you study, you start to understand. And as you start to understand, you love understanding, and you do it because you love it, not because you fear. So think of it that way. So that's the attitude of philosophy, the love of wisdom. It's a way of life. Philosophy is not just a class you take along the way to get your credit hours, to get your degree, to do what? What are you going to do then? I'm going to get a job, and then what? I'm going to get money, and then what? I'm going to be comfortable, and then what? Die? This is the story I hear every semester. So am I preparing you for death? That's depressing. No, I'm preparing you for a good life. And the good life means you have to love wisdom. So start now. And start pursuing wisdom now and keep going. I'll be here as your wisdom cheerleader. I'll help you keep going. All right, so is wisdom necessary for all people or for only some people? Well, do all people need meaning or only some people? Do you think you can get meaning without wisdom? I don't think so. Is wisdom possible for all? Think about that. Maybe some people can't get wisdom. Who would those people be? And why can't they? Does it take like a college degree to get wisdom? I don't think so. Is the need for wisdom disregarded by some people? Think about that. Who thinks they don't need wisdom? And if so, by whom? In the wisdom literature of philosophy and religion, there are two characters that are contrasted with the wise person. One is the fool, and one is the simple. And the simple is the one who thinks they don't need wisdom. They're just going to go through life. Maybe they're the going with the flow kind of person. I'm just going to see where life takes me. We'll talk about the go with the flow person as we get there. But they're not going to find happiness going with the flow. They might find fun, but there's also suffering that's going to come in. And suffering may be learning the hard way. So can one... is the need for wisdom disregarded by some, or if so, by whom? The simple person. What about this one? Can one seek wisdom if one is mistaken about being wise? This is the fool. So think about the fool as a character who thinks they have knowledge and they don't. The fool thinks they know and they don't know. Now, because they think they know, they're not in a position to learn. They're not teachable. So that's a very scary place to be in. At least the simple person might suffer and come back and be willing to learn. The fool can't learn because they think they already have knowledge and they're stuck. So we don't want to be the simple or the fool, particularly in philosophy. Otherwise, we will not have the attitude of learning. So in philosophy, we have to take the position of humility. I don't know, and I want to know. Or I don't know as I should know. There's a whole lot more that I can know, but I want to know. And oftentimes that means we have to sit under someone who is wiser than us and learn from them. So we have to be discipled, or we have to undergo discipline, learning. All right, can philosophy be pursued without the love of wisdom? So some people take this as just a class and they don't love wisdom. It's going to be very hard to do that. It's going to be boring. It's going to not be relevant. And it may be that your attitude blocks you. Your attitude may be, we can't know, and you're cynical, and you're jaded already, and you think this is an impossible task. Well, have you tried it? Why do you think that? Is that the attitude of the foolish person? This is an impossible task. I'm not going to try. Well, what makes you think that? How did you get to that position? What is the argument that led you to that position? Or are you just assuming that? So don't write philosophy off before you've even started because of a bad attitude. So here we want to check our attitude. As I come into this class, what is my attitude? Do I want to know? Do I think wisdom is the most valuable thing a human could have? And if not, what's more valuable? Money? Well, what is money? Money is just a means to something else. How do you know how to spend your money? How do you know how to get money? Doesn't that presuppose wisdom? Okay, I've gone on a lot about the attitude of philosophy. I hope that you will think critically about this. I should say this as well. You shouldn't accept anything I say just because I've said it. I'm here to raise consciousness, and I'm here to help you to become more consistent with your views, but you can push back. You can object to what I'm saying, but you should do it thoughtfully. You should do it as a person who is striving to get to a better answer, not as the simple, I don't need to know this, or as the fool, oh, I already know this. If you already know it, then you should propose to me a better answer. Maybe you do know, and maybe you have a better answer. I'm open to learning. You should show it to me. If you know it, you should show it. How about that? Okay, let's talk about philosophy as a method. This is probably the most basic sense of philosophy. It is the critical use of reason. Now, I want you to know more than that on the core question. I'm going to ask you what are the 5 features of philosophy, and I want you to tell me more about philosophy as a method. Explain method. So here it is, the critical use of reason. First, we're going to define reason, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because the next handout we go over is the reason handout. So here's the first piece I want you to know. By reason is meant the laws of thought, period. When I say reason, I mean the laws of thought. There are 3 laws. Let's look at them briefly, and then we'll explain them in more detail. The law of identity says that A is A. So it's a law. A is A. A thing is what it is. Kino is kino. The law of non-contradiction says that something is not both A and non-A in the same respect at the same time. Something is not both a human and a non-human in the same respect and at the same time. And the law of excluded middle says something is either A or it is non-A. 3 laws. When I say reason, by reason is meant the laws of thought. That's the first piece you need to know about philosophy as a method. The second is this. Reason, the laws of thought we just went over, is the test for meaning, period. Reason is the test for meaning. So those are the 2 things I want you to know. Reason in itself is, by reason is meant the laws of thought, and reason is the test for meaning. Now let's talk about what that means. This is a question you should learn to ask in this class often. What does that mean? What do you mean when you say that? I will ask, and you should ask too. So here it is. Reason is used critically when basic beliefs are tested for meaning. Basic beliefs go back to what we talked about in the previous video. How do I know what is real? What is the good life? When we propose answers to those, we want proof for the answers that we give. That's the test for meaning. So you say matter is eternal. What does that mean? What does that look like? What is the nature of matter, and what is the reason for thinking matter is eternal? So that's an example of saying what does that mean? So that's the critical use of reason. Now this word critical is used all over the place right now. Critical theory, critical race theory, critical feminist theory. Critical is a word that we should also say, what does that mean? We should pause and say, you use this word critical. What do you mean critical? That's the process. When we say, what do you mean? That's the process of critical examination. It's a test for meaning. And you know what? I want to show you another thing. Going back to our notes, I like to do things this way. If I was at the whiteboard, I would show it to you this way. Meaning is more basic than truth. So I'm going to draw a line here, and I'm going to say truth above it. Nope, let me go up one more. Okay, meaning is more basic than truth. Let's do this. More basic and less basic. It's less basic. I know it's not perfect. I like it to be perfect, but we're kind of in a rush. Not in a rush, but we're not going to be beautiful here. All right. The method of philosophy is the critical use of reason. When we do that, we're testing things for meaning. Meaning is more basic than truth. So when I do this, I'm talking about foundational, logically more basic. So if I say, Kino is non-human, that's a judgment. He looks at me like, what? Kino is non-human. You can say, what do you mean? So I'm making a judgment, and it's either true or false. But before I make that judgment, you want to know what the judgment means. So we, in this class, are going to focus on that level. What do you mean? You say matter is eternal. That's a judgment. It's either true or false, but what does it mean first? So meaning is more basic than truth. The critical use of reason is the test for meaning first before we test things for truth. Does that make sense? I hope so. I will show you example after example of that method. Okay, going back to our handout. Reason is the test for meaning. Reason is used critically when basic beliefs are tested for meaning. The meaning of a statement or a judgment is more basic than the truth of a statement. One has to know its meaning before knowing its truth. Here, let me show you another example. If we were in class, in the classroom, I would do this on the board right now. I would say, Blicks are, grew. Blicks are grew, period. And then I want to know, is that true or false? Here, let's put that true or false. Blicks are grew, true or false? How would you answer? I don't know. What does the majority think? Or what does that mean? I don't know what that means. So if we don't know what blicks are, and we don't know what grew is, then we can't say whether it's true or not, right? So this is an example. The meaning of these terms is logically prior to the truth of the statement. And we have to learn that method. What do you mean, blicks are grew? Okay, so a statement lacks meaning if it violates a law of thought. So if I go back to my blicks are grew, what if I say this? Blicks are non-blicks. Period. Well, you're going to say, that violates the law of non-contradiction. That's not true. It can't be true. So notice something could be not true because it's meaningless, like blicks are grew, and something can be not true because it's a contradiction. It violates a law of thought. That's going to be our method. We're going to be able to rule statements out as either meaningless because we haven't defined our terms, or meaningless because there's a contradiction. And things that are meaningless can't be true. They make no sense. We can't hold to them. So that's our method. A statement which lacks meaning cannot be true. That's going to be exciting for us. We're going to rule out all kinds of meaningless statements. Now this is for you to go and contemplate, in your quiet time, maybe while you're doing dishes or whatever you do when you're quiet. And if you don't have quiet, you should cultivate some quiet time in your life. Is it necessary to test basic beliefs for meaning? Remember, basic beliefs are about epistemology, metaphysics, ethics. Is it necessary to test them for meaning? And if we don't, we're assuming them. What if we assume meaningless positions? That would be tragic. Is reason the test for meaning? Or do you have some other method? If you can think of a better method than reason as a test for meaning, show it to me because I want to adopt it. Can there be truth without meaning? Think about that. And think about blicks are grew. Is it possible not to test basic beliefs for meaning? And if so, how? I'm just going to tell you It is possible. It's called assuming. We assume beliefs. We like to talk about our biases. Assumptions are like your philosophical biases, and you got them from somewhere, but what if they're false? What if they're meaningless? So you need to learn to test them because you want to build a life of meaning, not a life of meaninglessness and misery. And so we need this method to test our assumptions for meaning. And if they're bad, we need to get rid of them. Like, what if you have views that just don't make sense? Wouldn't you want to know that? And wouldn't you want to get rid of them and get meaningful views? That's the uncomfortable part about this class, though. Sometimes you discover a view you held to was meaningless. It happened to me. It happened to me, and I had to change my mind. But guess what? Changing your mind is not so terrible. It's uncomfortable, but it's for the best if you're getting a more meaningful view in its place. So we're looking for meaning. We're going where meaning leads. Now we have the area of philosophy, we have the attitude of philosophy, and the method of philosophy. I'm going to pause here, and next we're going to talk about the application and the system. Isn't this exciting? I know it is, right?